Thanks, Lascan Cora, and I welcome this opportunity, Minister, to address this, which I know the area of suicide and self-harm is an issue that you're concerned about and take a personal interest in. And indeed, you know, it's all too common across the state that if you take last year alone, there was the statistics show that there was almost over one suicide per day on average in the state. One life lost too many. The SOSAD organisation, which has 6 branches across the state, provide a valuable service. They provided that at a time when people needed. They provide it to people who are very vulnerable. And it's a hugely important service, easily accessible to people. The organisation is in existence for over 11 years, and in the case of the Tullamore office, it's there for 5 years. And as I say, there are 6 branches throughout the state, but they don't receive HSE funding. And if you just take the Tullamore one in particular, is one that I'm particularly interested in, 60 people per week on average is visiting that service. It's a voluntary service provided by people on a voluntary basis. This week there will be 15 hours of voluntary counselling provided there by accredited counsellors. This is very important. They don't charge for the service, they depend on contributions and fundraising to keep their services going. And you can understand, you can appreciate the difficulty. No matter what little service you run, once you open the front door and rent any little premises at all, you know, you're looking at a couple of €1,000, a few €1,000 per month. And if you take the service as well, medics and professional people are referring people to SOSAD, right? To Save Our Sons and Daughters is what it stands for. Medics and professional people are referring people to there, so it shows that it has a value. People are going to it from across, indeed not just from County Offaly, but from across the Midlands. But the Tullamore office won't be open after Christmas. It may not last till Christmas. They have looked for HSE funding. The organisation, the overall SOSAD organisation, has looked for funding in the past from the HSE, but have been unsuccessful. Realistically, you know, while there may be a voluntary fundraising effort by organisations, and we know this from the domestic violence groups and various other agencies that are providing valuable services in all our communities, but they can't rely solely on this. They need a core of funding to be able to provide their services. Now, this state, and all of us have seen it as public representatives, both at local and national level, we've all seen money being spent, and sometimes we get good return for that, and sometimes, Minister, we get a very poor return. But I can put my hand in my heart, I wouldn't put this down here for discussion today if I didn't believe that this was providing value for money. You know, if we save one life, but I mean if it's saving a number of lives, and I mean I have countless examples being recounted to me of, even in recent weeks, of clients that I've dealt with, you know, how they've intervened, how people have, you know, received counselling, received a sympathetic ear, received counselling, and been referred on to other services, you know. And I just think that, you know, while, you know, running into budget time, you'll have a huge number of demands, and we hear it even at this side of the House as opposition TDs. There's huge lobbying and huge competition for funding. But mental health, and I know it's an issue you're interested in, you know, we're interested in it, and you know that the party is genuine about this, Sinn Féin are, and indeed others are as well here in this House, that it's an issue that we need to deal with, it's an issue that we need to help out with, and I just hope that we can do something in terms of putting some little package of funding in place for this organisation.
Thank you. And Tara.
Here, I can just acknowledge from the outset the Deputy and indeed his parties, the extended parties, cooperation and positive approach always towards mental health issues, and I have never found any member of your party to be partisan or politically opportunistic in any way, shape or form, but I've always offered, led by indeed your party leader, Mary Lou McDonald, and Deputy Pat Buckley, who have always been very constructive and cooperative. Just a couple of issues on the specifics of the query you raised, so sad. In Tullamore, I'm informed by the HSE that they don't have any record of an application for funding from SOSAD for them. My department officials have made contact with SOSAD since you have raised this issue to advise them that there are 2 ways to apply for funding. One is, and I know they're there with 5 years, and the HSE are aware of their existence, but they haven't got any record of any funding application from them. There are 2 avenues to apply for funding to the HSE for an organisation like SOSAD. One would be both would be on the HSE website. One would be under the Section 38 or 39 funding application, which would be the more substantial, and there's also national lottery funding administered by the HSE, smaller amounts of funding. Both of those application processes are available on the HSE website. Application forms are available, but as I said, my officials have made contact with SOSAD to advise them of both of those avenues, but the HSE have informed me that they have not received any application for funding to date from that organisation. And I just want to acknowledge certainly the bona fides that you have mentioned as well of the organisation, and I absolutely accept that. And I appreciate the work that organisations like SOSAD do, and I suppose they effectively fill the gap where there are gaps, and they have kind of come from the ground. They're organic, ground-up organisations, and they do a power of work, and particularly in such a sensitive and important area. We have a National Office of Suicide Prevention. The funding of it, I'm glad to report, is increasing exponentially year on year. It's now at about 12 million per year. We have 17 local Connecting for Life plans launched, the length and breadth of the country. 17 developed, but 15 of them we have launched. I'm launching number 16 on the 16th of October in Kilkenny. And then we have only one left to launch, and that's a localised plan where all the agencies have come together and combined their efforts to work towards the prevention of suicide. And thankfully, while one life lost to suicide is one too many, the numbers of lives being lost to suicide are reducing significantly year on year in the recent years. So we are having some successes, but I can assure you that is not encouraging any complacency on my part and my officials' part, or indeed with the HSE or the National Office of Suicide Prevention. But again, to welcome the opportunity, any opportunity I get to respond and to discuss the issue of mental health and particularly suicide prevention, and to thank the Deputy for his interest and his contribution to SAME.
Stanley.
Thanks, Minister, for your response. And there's a positive note in it. I think you know that the national organisation, my information is that the national organisation applied for funding, and from what you've outlined here today, I think that the local branches need to apply through the local HSE for lottery funding. I think Section 38, Section 39 might be a hard one, because that tends to be the bigger organisations such as Marisa and the bigger agencies. But obviously, if they can get funding through Section 38 or 39, so be it. But from my limited knowledge of it, I'm not sure that that's going to be the way it's going to go. And maybe you might just come back to me again on that. But certainly, you're given some hope in terms of, at local level, that applications, genuine applications from genuine organisations such as this, will get a sympathetic consideration. And I welcome the fact as well that you've accepted the bona fides of organisations, because there are organisations that spring up maybe and people will question the bona fides of them and the work that they're doing and everything else. But from what I can ascertain, and certainly from the feedback on the ground, this organisation has really made a difference to a number of people's lives. And we know that mental health, there's a number of other things to impact on it, and we had I suppose a fairly heated debate this week around housing, and employment is another issue. We know that all those things feed into it, and mental health itself, maybe clinical mental health issues, obviously have to be dealt with, but societal issues can feed into that as well. But unfortunately, where people get to the end of their tether, they reach the point of where they're going to self-harm. It's vital, it's absolutely vital to have these grassroots organisations. I think that's the word you used to describe them, at the front line to try and intervene at this stage. There's a very informal approach so people can come in. And there is a society cost by not dealing with it. There's a community cost, there's a family cost. And the rate of self-harming among young people and children in 10 years soared by 22%. That's huge. So, I mean, it's really an issue that we have to get to grips with. So, look, I welcome your response. I will be taking back the message to the organisation. If you have further information, maybe you might do a written reply to me just in relation to if there's any other opportunities for funding for this organisation or organisations like it. You might just send it out to me in the next week or so. But thanks for your reply.
Thank you, Deputy.
And again, Deputy, essentially I don't have any further information other than Section 38 and 39 and the National Lottery funding. Both application forms are available on the website. There is no reason why a local organisation and local branch of an organisation like SOSAD, that might be a body of the National Party, could apply or couldn't apply for Section 38 or 39 funding. There's many organisations. I think I saw recently there's something like 1,027 organisations in the state receiving funding helping towards mental health issues specifically. And that's one of the challenges we have, because as people don't know where to go when they have a mental health issue. And that's why I aim to establish a single access point for all mental health queries to come in through one access point, be it a phone line, text line or an email, and that people can actually be referred appropriately. So if you are in the Tullamore region, and this will be the one national number that you phone, and somebody at the other end who would be appropriately qualified would say to you, well, you know, SOSAD is an organisation on our list, they're in the geographical area, and they would offer a service for you, rather than SOSAD trying to make themselves known to everybody. And then we have Alone trying to do the same thing, and we have Aware trying to do the same thing, and we have Jigsaw trying to do the same thing, we have Pay at a House trying to do the same thing, and they're all trying to sell their brand, if you like, and just make people aware of their existence. So what we're trying to do is streamline a single access point for all of these organisations, provided they have the appropriate level of governance, of course, be it clinical. But I myself and many practitioners in the field of mental health would be big supporters of organisations such as SOSAD that, you know, I think lower level of interventions can be very, very powerful. And not every young person needs to go into CAMS, where it's led by a consultant psychiatrist. I think younger people just have anxiety issues in some cases, and they don't need to be seen by specialist service. And that's why organisations such as the one you refer to are so vital for early intervention, to ensure that we can stop people going up to the specialist services and the queues that build therein.
Thank you, Minister.